Straight behind them. At the gallop.
At this moment, Pat is the only member of the team using Attila's fearsome warriors to any effect. And they're about to show just how effective they can be.
Oh, would you look at that? Look at those Huns. They've just completely enveloped the Romans.
They have numbers and surprise on their side. And as a result, they tear through the enemy. Back in the command center, the team's most successful action of the battle so far has gone completely unnoticed by the generals.
We're going to have to hit those. Bring them back now.
The job of holding off the Roman heavy infantry advance has fallen to a small group of Hunnic archers, also controlled by Pat, who have become isolated in front of the team's line.
Bring them back now because...
Engage, because they're moving up close.
Yeah. Right, Chris, we're going to be up... my archers are going to be overrun in a minute, so I'm going to pull them back.
Yeah, pull them back.
I'm going to pull these guys back.
The archers are withdrawn in the nick of time. But Chris is still hanging on to the idea of defending the top of the hill with his poorly armed infantry, who have already suffered heavy losses. One of the team's major problems is that despite being undeniably in charge, at this critical point Chris is having problems communicating his orders, just as the Roman heavy infantry arrive at the top of the hill. As the fighting begins, the mounted archers simply stand and watch.
We want to utilise the heavy cavalry to get in there and stay in there.
Do you think this has got something to do with NCO syndrome? You've got the ex-officer at the back, you've got the two NCOs at the front. They're probably frightened of acting without authority from their seniors.
Nobody has ever empowered them before.
Whatever the deficiencies of the team, things are looking bleak for Attila's men on the top of the hill. Gary manages to get his mounted archers to fire into the battle. But due to the nature of the close-quarter combat, they can't be sure who they're hitting.
So watch
You've got these archers.
Yeah, bring up yours
to the right.
from the right.
Acting decisively, Chris commits a unit of his mounted archers to a hand-to-hand fight with some of the Roman infantry. But it's hardly the hit-and-run tactics the team had planned.
See, look, they've taken this height and they're holding this height and they're allowing the Romans free reign of the field.
With that free reign, the Romans have been able to bring up infantry support to their front line on the hill. The surprise for the Romans is just how few Huns there are left to fight when they get there.
Look at that. Romans just cruising around doing what they like, not harassed, because look at those Hunnish horse standing still. They're just standing there. Go out and kill something. Those cavalry are about to take a charge at the halt, which is not good for cavalry.
As the Huns are pushed back, Chris and the team have failed to notice just how close the Romans are to the famed and feared Attila. If they allow him to be killed, it would certainly send an ominous signal to the Huns and their allies.
Let's get in there with the horses.
You're retreating your archers on horseback. They need to go forward.
Pat, where's your cavalry?
Our cavalry's been attacked, mate. Our cavalry's been attacked.
The situation is slipping away from Chris. His obsession with holding onto the high ground has meant he's taken heavy losses, and more of his troops are being pushed off the hill. There is still a chance to remobilize his army, but he would need to move all of his units onto the lower ground to regroup them first.
Oh, for God's sake. Could you imagine the Huns just letting their horse just stand around doing nothing? For God's sake.
Chris has sent in cavalry to engage with the Roman infantry. But the highly mobile, lightly armed mounted archers are much better suited to an entirely different type of warfare. In spite of their superior numbers, 2 units of precious Hunnic cavalry are now bogged down in a bloody fight for the right side of the hill.
Are you guys sure you're heading in the right direction? Because you seem to be moving back down the hill.
No, we're going back up the hill.
Jackie has noticed a disastrous development, but neither Gary nor Chris have time to listen.
You look worried.
I'm worried because I've got 2 blue guys heading down the hill instead of engaging this way.
Who's running away at this stage?
What the generals have realized is that some of their troops are now being routed and are fleeing back towards the ford and their camp beyond. while the lieutenants have no chance of regaining command of these troops, Chris is having similar problems with Pat and Gary.
Can we get these archers in there on the horses?
Where are these guys here now?
He's being completely ignored. Half of Gary's cavalry are taking heavy losses in an engagement with a compact formation of tough Roman infantry. The high ground just isn't worth these kinds of losses to the Hunnic army.
The team could pull themselves out of this hole if they take control of their cavalry and start going around and beating somebody up. They need to start hitting somebody.
We want to get in there. We need to, at the moment, we've got to push the Romans off the hill.
Right, the cavalry's moving up.
Yeah. So if we can get the cavalry, Gary.
Yeah, get my cavalry now to go forward on the left flank.
Go forward,
and
because
come up from the centre.
With a quarter of their troops dead or routed, the Huns are still fighting the Romans for control of the hilltop. Chris chooses to reinforce his position, committing the remainder of his mobile forces to a static fight. He believes that rather than defeating his enemy, the main priority is to remain at the top of a hill already littered with the corpses of his men. To make matters worse, the one-sided fight on the right flank is brought to a swift conclusion by Roman reinforcements, who are driving most of the Hunnic archers back into the woods. The Roman general Aetius now has complete control of the battlefield and has more units moving up to engage. Attila's as yet undefeated barbarian army, which before this battle had ravaged half of Europe, is now in complete disarray.
Are the lieutenants following your orders?
No, I don't think they are. Are we moving? We've got to start
Yeah,
getting...
we're moving.
Yeah?
Okay.
Come on, Gary.
We're moving, mate.
Yeah? You're going to engage that enemy?
Engage these guys now with
Yeah.
arrows and then get in
Just
amongst
get
them.
through them on the top of the hill, Gary.
The generals in the team have lost an overall view of the battlefield. Chris has moved up to the barrier. He's looking at the smaller picture. They can't really see what's going on all over the battlefield, and they're certainly not reacting to the danger of being taken bit by bit.
At the front of the hill, Pat's archers have attacked and defeated a unit of advancing infantry. But without tactical support, their attack on a unit of Roman heavy cavalry is futile. And the few survivors flee for the ford. And there's even worse news for the veteran barbarian leader and his generals.
This is Attila, and these are his senior commanders. For you to leave your general in a position of that amount of vulnerability is criminal.
Isolated from his fleeing forces and abandoned by the command center, Attila himself is being forced to fight for his life.
Attila is in this group, and the general, the key to the Hunnish force, is about to be killed.
Yeah.
It's unforgivable.
And Attila finally succumbs.
Attila the Hun, he's dead. Attila's dead.
With Attila's death, any hope of a Hun victory is beginning to slip away. Already the team have comprehensively lost control of the hill, and almost 3/4 of their army are either dead or on the run.
Gary, I think you've got some cavalry. They need to come round the back of the hill.
Despite Chris's efforts to rally his troops, the Romans' Visigoth allies now sweep forward to attack his Hunnic noble archers, regrouping behind the hill. It seems nowhere is safe for the Huns and their allies.
The whole point of the Huns being here was to deny the feature to the Romans. The Romans are now physically on the feature.
The team have failed to grasp the subtle tactical difference between holding ground and denying it to the enemy. Instead of standing off the hill in order to prevent the Romans from using it, they've fought a costly fight for territory which is ultimately worthless. But just when it seems Chris has no moves left, Pat comes to his aid. His heroic cavalry at last rally from their position behind the Roman lines and start a belated race to reinforce their Hun comrades on the hill.
How badly do you think it's going?
Very badly. I definitely think it's going badly because everybody appears to be running
springs
away.
to mind. What we need to regroup then, so you're going to have to... You've got some of our troops going off to the north, some is shooting off to the south.
Pat's valiant heavy cavalry arrive on the hill to find Hunnic infantry corpses, fleeing Hunnic cavalry, and an awful lot of Romans.
We don't seem to be engaging anywhere at the moment, so go. Hit those...
Are you taking the hill? Are you taking the hill? That was your plan.
The Romans are taking the hill.
Their recall has been too late. Without adequate support or numbers, they do the only honourable thing and throw themselves into the Roman lines. Their attack is short-lived. As the remains of the cavalry fight their way back to the safety of the ford, all Pat's troops are now either dead or fleeing. And with them goes the team's original battle plan.
So let's come off the hill into the woods then.
Now they're going to, now that they have expended so much blood on the hill, at least they've got the guts to cut their losses and get off that feature.